You'd be surprised how often a pedestrian gets hit in Miami or any other city in the state of Florida and ends up with a big payout, maybe even 7 figures. But here's what most people miss. It's not just about your injury. It can be about how the city or their contractors, the driver, and even the crosswalk design all play into who's legally responsible for your accident. I'm Pablo Tamayo, a personal injury attorney here in the state of Florida, and I've handled cases where just one of those details turns a small claim into potentially massive settlement. In this video, I'll break down exactly why these cases are so valuable and what has to happen for a payout like this to even be possible. So if you've been hit or know someone who has, you'll understand what makes the difference between walking away with nothing or getting the compensation that you deserve. So who pays when a pedestrian gets hit? When a car hits a pedestrian in the state of Florida, most people think the driver is the only one who can be at fault. But that's not always the full story. Sometimes it could be the city, the county, or the municipality where the accident happened. Let's say that there was a woman crossing a busy intersection at night. The crosswalk wasn't well lit. The traffic signal had been malfunctioning for weeks. And that woman gets hit by a car and suffers serious injuries. That woman could potentially have claims against both the driver and the city, and maybe even the city's private contractors or whoever else was responsible for those issues. Now, why is that the case? Well, we'd want to know who was responsible for the lighting in that area. How long was the light malfunctioning before the incident? All of these considerations would go into who was responsible for the accident, or at least partially responsible. And more than one party can bear responsibility in an accident, and it happens more than you think. And so if you live in a big city like Orlando or Miami, you've seen this firsthand probably. Crosswalk signals that don't work, faded or confusing paint on the roads, busy streets with no safe place to cross the street, sidewalks that just sometimes end without any warning. Think about areas in downtown metropolitan cities. Tons of people on foot, but the roads aren't necessarily built for safety. The issues don't stop at traffic lights and crosswalk lighting. Maybe the bushes block the driver's view of the stop sign. Had the city been warned for years and had they done nothing? When the crash happens, a city and their contractors can pay the price. And so what Florida law actually says is who's legally responsible when a pedestrian gets hit. Yes, drivers must watch out for people walking. But Florida law, cities have a duty to keep public spaces safe, not just for cars, but for pedestrians too. And that goes to their contractors as well. It's called premises liability, and it means that if the city knew about a danger and ignored it, they can be held responsible. If a city or government entity has a contractor that is contracted to monitor traffic lights or other street-related matters impacting pedestrians or traffic, then they too can be held responsible as sued for negligence. But aren't there limits on what a government can pay? Florida has something called sovereign immunity. And that means when you sue a city or any other government entity in the state of Florida, there's a cap on how much you can recover. Right now, today, that cap is $200,000 per person and $300,000 per incident. But sometimes the city still ends up paying more through what they call a special claims bill that's passed by the Florida legislature, usually in catastrophic cases. So with these limits, and the city still fails to keep people safe, sometimes they still have to write checks for these injuries. Now, when a pedestrian gets hit, the injuries tend to be more severe. We're talking broken bones, traumatic brain injuries, paralysis, even death. So how pedestrian victims prove the city's at fault? Well, this is where the case really turns. To hold the city accountable or their contractors, you have to prove that they were warned and that they didn't act. And that's called notice. And so to prove notice, we look for prior complaints from other residents, police reports showing prior accidents at that location, emails or memos demonstrating that the city was aware of a particular danger, evidence that the city knew it was dangerous and still did not fix it in a reasonable amount of time. Now, here's the bigger picture. Every time the city pays out one of these settlements, that money has to come from somewhere. Sometimes they may have some sort of insurance. Sometimes it's directly from the city budget or other accounts which they've set aside, which means basically it comes from the taxpayers' dollars. So why doesn't a city just fix every dangerous light, road, or any particular dangerous issue? There could be several different reasons why they don't. Maybe the city is growing too fast to keep up with the maintenance issues. Maybe the budgets are tight. Sometimes it's just a matter of they don't take action until they get sued. So these cases are not just about money, they're actually also about implementing change or highlighting dangerous areas for the future. And what you should do if you're a pedestrian who's hit by a vehicle, if you or someone you love gets hit by a car, here's what you should do. Get medical help immediately. Take photos of the scene, especially in a poor lighting or if there's missing signage in the area. Get witness info, names, and contact numbers if possible. Report the problem to the city, online or by phone. Talk to a lawyer quickly. These cases have strict deadlines and evidence fades, so don't assume it's just the driver's fault. Sometimes other people will share the blame. But if you wait too long, you could lose your right to sue. And so bringing it all together, why can a case involving a pedestrian pay millions? Well, sometimes there are other people or other companies responsible for the accident, people who have failed to protect pedestrians. And when they ignore known dangers or fail to do their contracted job correctly, the law says that contractors can also be held responsible to pay for their negligence. These cases aren't just about money, like I said. They're about holding cities and contractors accountable for making the cities and the streets safer for everybody else. If you walk, jog, or just walk through the cities, that could be you. And if you've been hurt, you may have more options than you think. So what's next? You just learned why pedestrian claims can pay out big and how victims can hold these people or companies accountable. But do you know what really determines how much you could get in a personal injury case? Watch my next video, the top 5 factors that have the biggest impact on your personal injury settlement. If you want to get every dollar you deserve, you need to see this, and I'll see you over there.